Right, China's a massive, massive country, one of the biggest military powers. What was the reason why China got the nukes and how exactly did it do this? So, yeah, this video from History Matters. Let's check this one out, man.
China was the fifth nation in history to become a nuclear power when it detonated an atomic weapon in 1964. Yet, given the fact that China hadn't fully industrialized yet, was internationally isolated, and its economy was on the verge of collapse, how did it manage to do it? How did China build a nuclear weapons program? So, as of the 1950s, China had just finished a long and brutal civil war, which had been preceded by World War II. The civil war had seen
I actually seen a video on that.
Victorious, with the defeated Chiang Kai-shek's government fleeing to Taiwan. When tensions between the mainland and Taiwan flared up in the mid-50s, the United States got involved, meaning Mao was stuck. To China's leadership, this meant that obtaining the bomb was the best way to avoid a humiliating repeat. And fortunately, Mao had a nuclear ally to the north, the USSR,
right,
which
there
was
we
happy
go.
to help China acquire nuclear.
Let me guess. Russia helped China, and that's where they became best friends.
Weapons, because China having them had little effect on the USSR. But it sure did make the lives of America and its allies in the region a lot harder, so off they went. Now, the USSR had tested its first weapon 5 years earlier than this, and so had a lot of expertise by this point. And the Soviet leader, Nikita Khrushchev, saw this expertise as something that he could leverage against China to keep it under control.
Yeah, there we go.
Khrushchev and the rest of the Soviet leadership were starting to move away from that whole Stalinism bit of their history, and given that Mao was a fan, they saw a potential conflict on the horizon. And so what they did was make sure that Soviet scientists were in control of the project, and that without them, China wouldn't be able to complete it. Which is why, when Mao denounced Khrushchev as a lame fake communist who was too nice to the West, the Soviets withdrew from the program, taking both know-how and important components with them. This left the Chinese not knowing how to proceed safely. But Mao wasn't interested in safety.
But wouldn't there, like, if you got a someone from the USSR that's in charge of it, you've also got people from China that's working on it, so wouldn't they be able to like remember it and like actually, you know what's going on and how to make it?
Mao was interested in proceeding. Now, it won't shock you to know that trying to fumble your way through building nuclear weapons using what the Soviets left behind and hoping for the best was not a great plan. And as a result, there were numerous setbacks. The deathy turns out this stuff is kind of dangerous style of setbacks. Eventually, the Chinese government accepted that you can't just demand that science be achieved, and it allowed the program more space. And within 5 years of this, the scientists involved had cracked it and China was ready to test its own bomb. Which it did in late 1964, much to the annoyance of the already existing Western nuclear powers who previously only had to worry about the Soviets. The Americans were particularly worried about another country building massive amounts of weapons that they'd have to match warhead for warhead, but the Chinese opted to not go down that route. Instead, the Chinese military pushed for a strategy of making any nuclear war with China cost too much, which is the strategy that China, as the world's fifth nuclear power, still uses to this day.
Yeah, it's kind of a shame that we went in this direction. It makes sense why it went in this direction, because everyone's got to be, you got to battle each other for the power and stuff. But why do we have to go to nukes, man? Because if there's ever a World War III, we are, yeah, we're fucked.
I hope you enjoyed this.
But yeah, really, really good video, really interesting. China became friends with Russia. Russia helped China make some news. Boom, bada bing. Now everyone's got fucking news. Literally everyone and their goddamn mums, and it's scary. Really enjoyed that one. If you guys enjoyed it, make sure you leave a thumbs up, subscribe, and I'll see you all in the next video.